Welcome back, it's Ryzen, and today I'm going to be discussing Agni from Fire Punch. If you want to hear my overall thoughts on the series, I uploaded a review on it last week and it's linked in the description. But to start this analysis, we need to go all the way back to when Agni was in the village with his sister. Although he went through so much pain and suffering on a regular basis, he was overall content. He was able to provide for those he cared about and enjoy living in a comfortable home with his sister. Well, maybe a little too comfortable, but we'll get into that later. After Doma absolutely creams all over their village, Agni changes completely. His life is now this depressing revenge story. At this point, there is nothing particularly special about Agni. We have seen a story with the protagonist with a traumatic past who now lives with hatred time and time again, but honestly, I was okay with it. Character arcs like this have been handled tremendously well in the past, such as Guts, Thorfinn, and Eren Yeager, and there is a lot of potential to explore deeper parts of the character that deviate from the vengeance-driven madness that we may grow accustomed to. Fujimoto really puts a lot of effort into emphasizing the fact that all Agni cares about is revenge, and accentuates it further by using Togata, who I will refer to as Director Togata to avoid confusion. He uses Director Togata to flat out tell the readers that this is a cut and dry revenge story. But of course, as we all know, it's not nearly that simple. After training with Director Togaga, Agni is now finally ready to kill Doma. However, he ends up changing his heart when he sees a group of slaves. He is willing to abandon his chances for revenge and express an entirely different sentiment than what he had previously held. He acknowledges that Doma wasn't entirely in the wrong for killing a village full of cannibals, and completely reevaluates his entire reason for existence. This scene truly shocked me and made me much more interested in Agni's character, since most of the time, revelations like this would occur near the end of the plot. After this, I knew I was in for much more than a simple revenge story. As the story progresses further, we eventually hit another major turning point in Agni's character. Believing that he had killed Doma, Agni is confronted by Judah. Agni is shocked by her resemblance to Luna and doesn't want to kill her because of it. Judah then delivers some amazing lines that, based off of Agni's reaction, perfectly describe his situation. She tells him that since he killed Doma, he now no longer has a reason to live, and if he sees her being killed before his eyes, he will now no longer have anyone left to hate, or now have truly zero hope that his sister will be alive. This scene is great characterization for Agni because it really shows how reliant he was on Doma. Doma was really the entirety of Agni's will to live, and with that out of the picture, Agni is now desperately turning to other things to fill that void. This shows that he didn't actually mean it when he said that the only thing he wanted to do was kill Doma and then die, but he actually wants to truly live deep inside. After the events of the raid arc occur, we are left with Agni being revered as a god amongst the people he rescued. I really loved this part of the story because I thought it gave some interesting takes on religion and explored the minds of the people who lived in that society. But for the purposes of this video, we need to look at how it affected Agni. Being seen as a god was incredibly overwhelming, and he turned to Director Togata to help him. Their dialogue was really good, and I enjoyed how Agni was portrayed as a child here. He tells Director Tobirama that he is still a child because he never got the chance to properly mature throughout his 8 years of torture, so he needed her guidance as a senior. This is something I never actually thought about, but it made total sense to me upon Agni flat out saying it. As you get older, maturity and wisdom do not entirely come from you, but by the way society begins to treat you differently. People expect you to talk, act, and look differently than you did when you were a little kid, and if you do not, there will be consequences. Agni never had this, however. He didn't experience a gradual change in responsibilities or in the attitudes of others, he simply just suffered alone. He never properly experienced puberty or anything like that. He never even got to properly enjoy his fire faps. It only makes sense that someone in his situation would be incredibly immature. There are even people in real life who don't experience these added responsibilities and expectations and just end up being overgrown man-children. They expect everything to go their way, and when it doesn't, they throw a tantrum. I think we have all met a person like that, and seeing it translated into the world of Fire Punch as the main character is fascinating. But instead of throwing a tantrum, Agni goes on murderous rampages, so there's that. Anyways, when Agni is given the responsibilities of becoming a god, he turns to Director Tobuscus and seeks her guidance. This is the real foundation of their relationship and the point to where we start to truly love both Agni and Director Togata. This is then completely and utterly demolished in the next arc when Agni murders dozens of innocent children and Director Takuria dies, so yeah. After this, we get a major story change and Agni's flames get extinguished. Agni taking advantage of Judah's amnesia and tricking her to be his sister was absolutely awful. Agni's relationship with Judah was just very unsettling and disturbing to me. It made me come up with this theory that the land that Agni is living on is actually present-day Alabama. I mean, it only makes sense because, in Alabama, people like to keep their genes in the family, and to do that, they actually need to go into their family, so it checks out pretty well. Additionally, Agni actually going through and sleeping with his sister was really weird as well.
There was a misinput, calm down! You calm down! There was a misinput!
Some absolute degenerates may try to argue the fact that, oh, it's not weird, dude, she's a completely different person, but no. They're nearly exactly alike in looks and even voice, and Agni is still sexually attracted to her. And he even wanted her to view him as a brother, so yeah, it's really weird, don't act like it's not. And it was actually stated verbatim by Agni in the canon manga that he wanted to finally burn out and die, and when that happened, he wanted his sister to put his ashes in her soup and eat it, just so that he could tear that ass up one last time. Nah, but all jokes aside, this was a very unsettling aspect of the manga that was just very uncomfortable to read. With all that aside though, one of my favorite scenes in the entire manga comes from the part of the story when Tenna, one of the women living with Agni, is talking to him and convincing him not to kill anyone. She says that although he didn't get cold, he still wore clothes. Although he couldn't sleep, he still closed his eyes every night. And although he couldn't taste, he still ate. This speech was incredible. It showed that even though he was peacefully living with the people that he loved, he was still constantly being tortured. Agni then proclaimed that he is not Agni, he is the Fire Punch, and he strikes Tenna. He then says that he never cared for any of them and only stayed with them so that Doma could suffer in hell knowing that his children were living with his killer. This is such a stark contrast to the position as a protagonist at the start of the show, and it shows that the world has truly turned Agni into a villain. Another incredible moment was when Doma's grandchild lit Agni on fire and rekindled his eternal suffering, and Agni, who was already so accustomed to torture, didn't even react. He just told the child to never use the flames again and left. After some crazy fights, the story ends with Agni once again losing his fire, but this time getting amnesia as well. He is then raised as a completely different person, and after floating around in nothingness for an infinitely large amount of years, he is finally reunited with Judah. I didn't really care for this ending too much, as it seemingly takes away from the entirety of Agni's character that had been built up all this time, but at the same time I understand why Fujimoto did this. I think Agni had spiraled so far out of control and he was so mentally unstable that this was the best way to give him a good ending. I still wish we would have seen something different with the real Agni, but overall I respect Fujimoto's decision. To conclude this video, I just wanted to end off by mentioning something that I said in my review, which was that throughout the entire duration of the manga, I never once actually liked Agni as a person. I never thought he was cool, intelligent, or any other positive thing that you would typically think of a protagonist. The entire time I pitied him, and towards the end I pitied him and disliked him at the same time. This truly sets him apart from characters from other works and makes Fire Punch the roller coaster of a series that it is. I know I skipped a lot of things, and honestly I could go on for just another hour just talking about Agni's character, but I only wanted to cover was a few of his best character moments and give my thoughts on them. I'm going to upload a tier list next week where I go over all the other characters, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. And also please like the video if you enjoyed, as it helps out the channel a lot. And as for the final verdict, Todoroki is a trash one-dimensional waste of ink D tier character.
Damn, you hit the spot. Taste like candy, sweet like fruit, ooh, wet like water. Can I love on